Welcome to Midwest Talks. I'm Jessie Alison, your host, and in addition to our Midwest Access, we are also starting a new program online where we've got a little more time to dive into some of those deeper issues that need a little bit more time to talk about. And so today, my guest is Wale Elegbede, and he is the president of the Rochester branch of the NAACP, and I am so pleased to have him here today. We're going to talk about race and community, and there has been obviously so much going on. Wale did a TED Talk back in 2020 that talked about his personal experience coming from Nigeria under that regime, what that was like, but then moving into the after effects of 9/11 and the Islamophobia then again kind of in that 2015, 2016, and really what him and his family went through, and comparing that to what we're seeing again now with ICE in our communities. And even though it looks very promising for the future, this is what people have been dealing with over the last few months and what we're going to continue to be dealing with. So his unique perspective really helps us shed a light on how we can come together as a community, how we can listen to and understand one another, to better understand where people are coming from, to promote a sense of unity, as Wale says, to go from none of our business to it's everybody's business. To helping each other, standing shoulder to shoulder. We'll talk about a little bit of his work in La Crosse, Wisconsin, with a group called Shoulder to Shoulder that he was one of the founding members. So I invite you to take in this conversation, and I hope that it touches you and means something to you. What is happening to people that you know and see every day?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, so first of all, no one wants crime, right?
Right.
And when you think about, what the president said in terms of we're trying to get the worst of the worst, at surface level,
Yeah.
no one wants a rapist or, someone
Right.
doing violent crime, right? But when you look at the details in terms of what's really happening on the ground,
Yeah.
they're basically taking people that have committed no crimes, and if you're an asylum seeker, I mean, you've come through a legal path in the United States, and
Yes.
overwhelmingly a lot of folks are asylum seekers. One of my colleagues, the former director to the Rochester Civic Center, her daughter-in-law just got released, and she was married to an American. She was legally here. She's an asylum seeker, been in the United States for 10 years, I think 10 plus years, and just got released. And due to prayers, people donated, so it's important for people to actually support. And now she has an ankle bracelet.
Really?
Yeah, exactly. And so they're going to be fighting that.
Oh my gosh.
And so that's really what's going on,
Mm-hmm.
So it is, and when we look at the history of our country, in terms of the Chinese internment camps.
Yes.
And we'll look at, so there's a lot of, it's not a good feeling, and it's certainly not American.
No.
But it is happening, and a lot of times we hear, well, this is not who we are. Well,
Right.
How can you say this is not who we are when this is happening
Yes.
right now?
Yeah.
So.
And it feels very helpless, I feel like, at times, where you're just like, first of all, how can this be happening, and what can we do about it? Which maybe we'll get down the line. But
Yeah, for sure.
I would love to start with your TED Talk. Which I just got to watch the other day, and was wonderful. You sharing about what it was like. Wonderful is not the right word. Interesting.
Yeah, it was a vulnerable space.
Terrible.
For me. Yeah.
There was a, boy, sometimes the English language lets us down. It was an incredible thing to hear you talk about what you'd been through post 9/11.
Yeah.
So maybe you start with sharing just a little bit about that.
Yeah, and maybe in terms of even when the opportunity came to give a speech,
Yeah.
there were a lot of things I could have talked about. I could have talked about project management, strategy, leadership. And what I ultimately settled on is that if there's one message that I want to send, if there's one message that that I feel like has been actually a handicap and hurt in our country, and the world, what would that be? And so that's really where it took me into racism and discrimination, and the TED Talk, it takes a community to eradicate hate.
Yes.
And this was really based off of my lived experiences, what occurred in La Crosse, Wisconsin.
Yep.
And basically, there was a lot of, we had the first Trump administration was coming in, saw the impact, in terms of the words that he was saying. And as someone that grew up in a dictatorship in Nigeria and Lome, Togo, under a military dictatorship, there were a lot of things that were being said that I'd heard before. And so, I remember just talking to my wife, I'm like, I've heard this before. This is dangerous. And I was seeing people saying, oh, it's just rhetoric. Well, rhetoric is a signal. When we speak about stuff, it's really, it tells you where our mindset was.
It does.
And I also started to see how this was affecting not just my kids, but a whole bunch of other kids and families. And so I, collaborated with the Franciscan Sisters, Perpetual Adoration in La Crosse. We had a lot of just ordinary community members, ordinary people that wanted to do extraordinary things. And we had people of all ages, of all faiths. We had, I believe, June Comey at the time was maybe 92.
Oh, wow.
And so really we had a 92-year-old sister, we had Buddhists, we had Jewish brothers, we had Muslims, and really we wanted to basically, how do we combat Islamophobia and how do we combat discrimination? And basically that's how, we founded the La Crosse Shoulder to Shoulder Network, to basically stand shoulder to shoulder with our community, with our Muslim neighbors. And when you look at what's happening with the Somali community, the Hispanic community, so it's, again, it's just very sad. So that's basically how the TED Talk occurred. And I mean, I remember even my wife was afraid for me to go to mosque, and there had been, just a lot of crazy incidences in Wisconsin at the time. And so it was real fear, and people also wanted to, some of the elders just felt, let's put our heads down.
Sure.
Well, let's not say anything. It's going to pass by. I'm like, it's not going to pass by, because I've seen this. When you put your head down, your head gets smashed. The best thing that you need to do is really tell people stories. This is what's affecting your neighbor. This is what's affecting your student that you're teaching, right? This is what's affecting your patients.
Yes.
And so once people start to understand that, then they can actually do something about it. But if you don't know it, you can't do it.
Exactly. And I think that's kind of where we wanted to have the conversation.
Yes.
What it's all about is, first we have to listen. When we have to believe people when they tell us an experience that is different from our own, that we haven't seen. Because just because we haven't seen it doesn't mean it hasn't happened, So I think that's where we have to start. Then you can understand exactly what you said. You can understand then what that person's going through, what it would feel like. Put yourself in their shoes. What would that feel like to go through that? And then how can we stand together? And we don't have to agree on everything. And
a lot of, these issues, I mean, I think it's stemming from the fact that our country is becoming more diversified. There have been numerous studies that, America is going to become, the United States is going to become more multi-hued. You have a lot of Hispanics, you have immigrants. And so when I look at, what's happening right now, it's really, in some cases, white supremacy, but it's also the nervousness of, in terms of, if our country becomes really diversified, we're going to lose our quote unquote culture, we're going to lose our language. It's ultimately we're going to lose power, and it is going to happen, and it's a good thing. It doesn't mean that they're not going to be, any whites or any
Right.
blacks or Hispanics, or anything like that.
Yeah.
But you can't lead with fear.
No.
I mean, I'm for cultural appreciation.
Yeah.
We all have an amazing culture that we can learn from one another. I mean, we look at the Amish. Well, they have an amazing culture. We
Yeah.
should lean in and learn about that. So,
Yep.
so again, it's about just that mindset. But this is where a lot of this is coming from.
That makes sense. That people are afraid,
Yeah.
and what you do, whether you're leading it. I've heard people say you're either responding in fear or in love, and when you've got people responding in fear, then really negative things are going to happen.
Yeah, and fear works.
Yeah.
I mean, it's throughout history, fear works. But again, really, love, communication, when you're talking to one another, then there's really nothing to be afraid of, because hey, what, I actually know you. It's kind of like you have someone coming into your neighborhood, and you're like, well, what are they doing? And once you get to know them, then it's like, hey, no, this is great. You know what? I actually want to try some of their Somali food or the sambosas or something like that.
Yep.
And even in the military. So when we look at, I believe it was World War II, where before the military was segregated, you had white soldiers that didn't really want to fight with black soldiers. There was an intention, through the efforts of the NAACP and others to make sure that we had that the military was integrated.
Yeah.
And once that occurred, and there are numerous studies about it, it's called intercontact hypothesis. Basically, folks found that the white soldiers, and the black soldiers, they had that bond because they had gone to war together, and that was the trust. They were doing things together.
Yeah, they got to know each other.
They got to know each other.
Yeah.
Our kiddos in school, they're playing together.
Yes.
They get to know each other.
Yep.
But when you're in your island and you're in your island, then it becomes really scary because I don't know who you are.
Right.
And that's what we need to fight.
Yes. So how do we fight that? I think that's one of the things that I think about. Okay, so we're seeing things that we don't like. How do we fight it? Is it by coming together, like how you did in lacrosse with the shoulder to shoulder?
Yeah. Well, it's coming together, but it's also
We can keep talking.
it's also really sharing, the truth. I mean, in lacrosse, we didn't really deny the fact that this was occurring. So first of all,
huge. Isn't it? I think that is so huge because we want to go, racism doesn't exist. Everybody's nice to each other, and it's, that can't be true. You must be over exaggerating. No.
Yeah, and
no.
And we're actually under sharing. I mean, it's because if we were sharing every single thing that was occurring, I mean, it would be really crazy. I mean, when I look at even the NAACP's history, for example, there was a time that there was a magazine called The Crisis, and they were trying to get a lot of black leaders in the NAACP were trying to share about the lynchings that was occurring, and they couldn't get that into the papers. And so eventually they said, we're going to do our own research, and they started to do the, W.E. Du Bois started to document stuff. And basically that's where you had, the signs where a man was lynched yesterday, and once the data was there, now you can't unsee it because you're hearing those stories, and so that's why it's important for there to be honesty and fairness in the news.
Yes.
I mean, it's so important because, I mean, it's just establishing the facts.
Yep, the facts just need to be out there. I think so often people are afraid, even in the news, even here where I work, of offending. We're afraid to offend, and then we, at times, I feel, get caught up with not wanting to say just the facts. Because they might offend. Yeah, sometimes the facts are offensive. Sometimes those things that happen are incredibly offensive, and we need to take action. But it doesn't make it not true. And we need to tell the truth.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's even like you establish the facts, but then why is that? There's always a story behind the fact, and so that's where people should lean in. It's like, is there racism? Yes. Did this occur to this person? Yes. Is this occurring to a whole bunch of community members? Yes. Why? And let's start to dig in and share those stories for mutual understanding. So, but in lacrosse, I mean, it was really people coming together, and it took a lot of courage.
Yeah.
Um,
It had to be incredibly frightening having children
Yeah.
in school at that time.
Yeah, I mean, you think about your life, and I mean, I've had death threats, even last year with the whole Shiloh stuff, right? Oh
Really?
yeah, yeah. There's a lot that people don't know, and there's a lot that I don't share.
I bet that's tough. How do you know what I mean? Because
Yeah,
I'm thinking, tell me, but I bet it's difficult.
Yeah, it's so I'm very intentional in terms of what I do, but like, so for example, the city attorney's office,
Yeah.
there was a report that he got some death threats and hate
Okay.
mail, basically that had occurred to me, and the FBI and others folks were so again,
Wow.
I get a lot of stuff,
Wow.
but it's important for me. You just sort of I'm reminded by what John Lewis says: keep your eyes on the prize, and so I'm always keeping my eyes on how do we make our community better, how do we make our organizations better, how do we support our people, and the time you're spending. And I'm always also careful, and from a strategic perspective.
Yeah.
But if you live in fear, and fear works, love and
Right.
fear works. Whatever you put your attention towards,
Yes.
you're gonna get more of, And so I tend to focus on the positive things, but I'm also a realist, and yeah. So, but
It's a
the
lot
danger
to
is out
balance.
there. Yes.
The danger is out there.
Yeah,
and
for
right
sure.
here in Rochester and in Minnesota, we like to think everything is nice,
Yes, it's and it is nice.
It is nice.
But there are good people,
Yeah.
but there is also hate.
Yes.
And we have the dichotomy of love and hate, and how can good people do hateful things,
Right.
And but then what we're seeing with ICE, this is, to me, I think it's actually even it's on a different level.
It is.
Because we had heard about stories of, well, what would I do if I was living in the slavery era? What would I do if I was living when there were Japanese and our Chinese Asian brothers were in the internment camps? Well, what are you doing right now?
Yes.
Because this is happening right now.
And that's what I really am hoping, because I do feel like there's good people trying to really do important things, and then there is hate, and then there's like a large mass in between that are kind of just living their lives, working, taking care of kids, doing homework, all of those things, and don't maybe really understand what is happening.
Yes.
And that's kind of where
That
I'd like
is
to
yeah.
get through.
And when I did a TED talk, I said that we need to go from not my business to everyone's business. That is exactly right. We have, and yes, you're busy, but you are a member of the community. You're a member of society. You still have community responsibilities.
Yes.
It's kind of like you're going on the road that has been made through taxes and whatever. So as a member of this community, you need to care for your neighbors.
Yeah.
And through any religion or no religion, I mean, there's caring. You're being your brothers and sisters' keeper. So we know what we need to do. And that's what we need to really start to have these conversations. But I do know this always works. If you can bring people together, you're doing something together.
Yeah.
That always ensures that there's more trust, because
There is.
now I've worked with you,
Yep.
I've eaten with you,
Yep.
our kids have, we may not agree on everything, but I know that I know you.
Yeah.
I know that you're not coming to destroy my life.
Right.
You may have your beliefs and your culture, and I have mine, and let's actually learn about it.
Yes.
So
Yeah, like you said, it's that fear piece, which I think when you know each other, then you're kind of assuming positive intent from the other person. You know them, so you go, okay, well, I know that they're not, this bad person, so let's try and understand, and then that helps us understand. So what have you seen that you would be willing to share of what's going on with ICE kind of in our community or in Minnesota?
Yeah, I mean, a lot. You have a situation where, in my role as the NAACP, where I get a lot of we get a lot of people that share stuff with us. But you know, there was an incident of someone going to the hospital and got grabbed on his way to the hospital.
Really?
You know, within 24 hours, he was in El Paso, Texas. You know, legally allowed to be here. Been working, I believe, maybe 10 years as well.
Wow.
And no crimes, and grab him, and now wife is here, he's over there, right? You have a situation of a student, a healthcare worker, and a student trying to pump gas, and basically, you know, she shared that she noticed that there are some folks in cars, and once they saw her, then they put on their mask, and so she was able to quickly just
Get it.
get out.
Thank
you know,
goodness she was
right
on guard.
Yeah, and she said it was her hijab. You know, you have situations of families where, you know, like someone has been a parent has been taken away, and now you have like a 10-year-old
Yes.
with no parents, right? All of a sudden.
I think people want to believe, sorry to interrupt
Yeah,
you.
no, yeah.
I think people want to think that it isn't happening because it's wrong. Like, well, the government won't do that because that's a wrong thing to do, and I trust my government. But these things are happening. They're happening, and we need to open our eyes to it.
And people need to be really honest.
Yes.
In terms of, we all know what ethical leadership is. We all know what moral leadership at least is. And are we seeing something that is moral and ethical? We're not. We're not. You know, that's just a fact. I mean, just last week or this week, where we have the president sharing like a picture of President Obama, you know, as an ape, right? I mean, these are racist stuff, right?
It's unbelievable.
And we know, and so, but we always try to make excuses. Maybe this is not what this meant. Maybe it's not this. We need as a society, we need to knock it out.
We do.
No, we need to
when
really knock it out.
When people show you who they are, you know, believe them, and that's we've been showing and showing and showing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you know, I think as a society, this is where we all have a role. If we want to have good moral leaders, then we need to vote for good moral leaders. We need to say that this is also a criteria for leadership.
Yes.
You know what? And if you're running for office, and if you're not gonna treat others like I teach my kids to be, to treat, you know, others.
Yep.
If you're not gonna do that, then we're gonna vote you out.
Yep.
You know, and we may need to do that multiple times to send that message.
Yeah.
And then politicians will understand that if I want to serve and have the privilege of serving the American people, I am going to speak respectfully. I am going to work hard. I am going to be truthful. I am not going to display any racism.
Right.
Those ideals, but we, the voters, need to vote people out that do that.
Yep. Like you said, we can't make excuses.
Yeah.
And for some reason, we want to do that at times. And I think to me, it feels like it's if I start to confront that, if I start to confront that the leaders of my country aren't trustworthy, that's a really scary place to live.
Oh.
And so I just want to, like you said, keep my head down. But we just can't do that.
Yeah, and we know. I mean, it's so bad that we know. And I think when you look at other countries, you know, one of the things, and I shared this at over the weekend, we had this a great guest, Lee Hawkins, I Am Nobody's Slave, and I shared that I think something that this country needs is a national conversation in terms of slavery and also race. You know, when you look at South Africa, when you look at Nigeria and other places, you look at Germany, you know, there was a conversation about the Holocaust. There was a conversation about apartheid, you know, in Nigeria there was a conversation about all the human rights crimes that was done, right? And and that ensures that everybody is really participating, is listening. You know, in Nigeria, it was actually the Supreme Court judge that, you know, was facilitating this process.
Really?
So, you know, the president, you know, made that possible. So it's an important conversation. We have never had that here.
No.
You know, we're having this important conversation right now. Other media may have their own conversation, but it's really sporadic, but there is no national conversation.
Yeah.
And we don't want to really tell the truth to our children. It's like, this makes us feel bad, It's not about making people feel bad.
No, it isn't. It's just about knowing the truth. And
it's about knowing the truth, and how do we move from here,
So, and how do we not go back? How do we not move backwards?
Absolutely.
Yeah. You hear so often people say things like, well, my family wasn't here, or my people didn't own slaves, but that we're still all Americans, and that's part of our history.
Yes, it's part of our history, and it's not for people to feel bad, because yes, you did not do it.
Right.
Yes, your descendants did that, not you.
Right.
But we owe it to ourselves to understand the history, because those impacts are still here. So it's really not about making people feel bad.
No.
Now, there may be others or some that how they teach it or share stuff, they don't do that in a way that's inviting. I think that needs to be called out too. But again, the goal should be, can we have truth and honesty?
Yes.
But, I also understand where the pain is coming from. The pain is real, and so...
The pain is real.
Yeah.
And it, like the guest that you mentioned, Lee Hawkins, the generational effect is real. So, whether I do or don't feel that, being white, having been a descendant of slaves in this country, you feel that, even if it's many generations back, which it's really not all that many generations back anyway.
Yeah.
But it was interesting to hear him talk about, how the way that his father was raised and the effects that had on him. It's still in there.
Absolutely. And if you even look at it from a diaspora perspective, a lot of those things, also happen in Africa. Maybe not. Well, I don't want to say to the extent that he shared, but I mean, so that happens, and I suspect it happens, to white families too.
Absolutely.
Right.
Yeah.
And so again, this is that legacy. But yeah, look.
We have to take a break here from Midwest Talks and our conversation about race and community. We've got some breaking news here. Rochester legislators are gathering outside City Hall to talk about the upcoming legislative session. Many of these issues that are very top of mind for Minnesotans right now.